Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning in to LO3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy Mango, South Florida, and today's date is Sunday, January 3rd, 2021. Expect this to be published the next day because almost midnight in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, kicking back by the New River. I always enjoy doing my shows outside here. You may hear the bridge and the birds and all that, but it's pretty quiet right now. So, I know I made a little tangent, vented a little bit in my last episode, and I do apologize for that. Just sometimes it just dawns on me. I always scratch my head on how these people think. You know, so, and that's what gets me the most. And so, I'm just like I said, I apologize. No intent by any means, because usually I'm use a lot of finesse, but I get a little bit jacked up because I always warn people on governmental agents and all that, gotta be vigilant regardless. So that's how I see things, and even the whole mind control propaganda machine, people getting caught hook, line, and sinker, divide us all, which is very dangerous. I was watching a video from Lisa Haven via YouTube. David Justice was doing a show about 15.9 billion ways they can control people. It was very good. It was a good, very good content on it. I always admire Dave Justice, and Lisa Haven for do their own presentation as well. Always give them props. Sometimes I may disagree with Lisa Haven a few things, but it's not negative, okay? It's just, I always catch, wait a minute, there's a flaw there, but not crucifying her. She's doing what she believes is right, trying to save humanity in her own way. Including Mike Adams, Steve Quayle, and of course, Dave Hodges from the Common Sense Show, and many others, and even Chris Ann Hall. You got so much great information out there you can utilize, even on SoundCloud. And I follow Mises.org for an example, too. So, and that's why when I hear about people using the internet, it's always you want to utilize it to enhance humanity, not be enslaved or have people get indoctrinated. I always see these garbage apps I could really give dilly squat over. I never was a big fan of TikTok. I find as I go, so what? And even some other bogus apps people use, and they're on their phones religiously, totally zombified. And for even a person like myself, I always believe in utilizing. I have a colleague of mine, elderly person, travel together. If you're at a restaurant, you're in the bathroom, or hanging out, I'll look at something, hey, what do you got? Because she knows I utilize it. And that's why I always tell people, come to social media, utilization is the key. And decentralization is important. Don't always just rely on all the mainstream, typical big tech sites, okay? Search engine and all that. There's plenty of others out there. And even a person myself, I use DuckDuckGo as a search engine, and there's others I'm looking at as well. But always trying to see how I can make it better myself when I utilize equipment and tools like that, and social media and so forth. That's why you see me on Spreely, Gab, my PocketNet. I'm on Float, So Me. That's a real cool one too. And I'm still learning, okay? And I boldly admit that. And I enjoy every minute of it to share my content to everyone on those sites. And you can just type in Looky Luck number 3 or Looky Luck number 3 podcast, room number 3. You'll find me everywhere. So that's one thing I utilize, just to put the information out, give you my intake. It doesn't matter if you agree with me or not. But I get people share their comments, and that's awesome. Most of the people there are great. Okay, you have a few trolls. You have to expect that. When someone gives you a stupid name, they all think they're geniuses. I just laugh. Okay, to me, it doesn't bother me one bit. All right, it's all pettiness. But the bottom line is, if you have interactions and even you have your differences, it's okay to have a great discussion to build strong dialogues. A healthy one. That's what the globalists, the order, and big tech, deep state don't matter. They don't want that. They want us to be divided and we can be ruled like peasants. Slaves versus slaves, okay? Like I said in my last episode. Always pay attention on what you're putting out there. And like I always suggest people with social media sites, don't use it as a personal dialogue or personal diary. And I have friends of mine that have made those mistakes and they backfired on them. They're good people too. So, and I give them my inspiration and they love me for it. I don't even try. They take my advice and I don't even try. I didn't even think about it. Just give them my view and they really appreciate it. So always utilize it in a neighborly way too. And I'm going to be wrong. I may just throw sarcasm in there once in a while. Even some memes. And it's not personal attacks. It's just mainly principle. And if you do that and judge those by their actions or merits, trust me, you'll be a lot better instead of showing pure animosity towards certain people and so forth. Because when you do, you can deceive yourself, be distorted and distracted. And I digress. So it's my little rant on that. So I'm going to be doing a couple articles here. So I was going to do it. One of them today, like my last episode. So you know what? Let me try not to put too much in one area because always I try to do segments. I know the last one was like 45 minutes long, which that's okay. I try not to go too overbearing. So I always try to give you bits and pieces. That's how I do things. And I've been doing it since 2013, December 2013. So I could say about, 7 years now. And it's pretty damn cool. So, and I thank everyone for taking the time of checking me out and share with others, okay? And giving your viewpoints. And I'm always thankful for interactions. And some people, if I meet you in person, that'd be great, And I have done that in the past. So, I still do today. All right, enough of me digressing here. So I'm going to be starting off here from zerohedge.com. And this one here is about COVID-19 leak. Top U.S. officials say growing body of evidence shows COVID-19 leak from Chinese lab. This is what Tyler Druden said, and it came out like 11:10 a.m. So it says here the most credible theory about the origin of COVID-19 that escaped from the Chinese laboratory, according to U.S. Security Advisor Matthew Poindinger, who made a commitment during a Zoom meeting with UK officials. There is a growing body of evidence that the lab is likely the most credible source of the virus, said Pointinger, referring to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, according to the Daily Mail, which notes that even China's leaders openly admit their previous claims that the virus originated in the Wuhan market are false. And I agree. I remember that. I'll stop there for a moment. I'll interject. Is that I knew that for a very long time, and some people I chat with, they like not all, a great amount of them bought it hook, line, and sinker on that whole market thing. I'm like, are you guys insane? Come on. And but I'm not trying to be critical, but I'm just like looking at it. I'm like, huh? It's like, yeah, and Jim Jones was a great role model, correct? I'll continue on here. Pointinger was one of the first U.S. officials to sound the alarm at the White House over the origins of the virus in January 2020, when he initially suspected that the outbreak originated in a Chinese lab, after which Pointinger ordered U.S. intelligence agency to search for evidence. Good thing he kept this theory to himself, or Twitter may have banned him. Yeah, that's true on that. He also slammed the World Health Organization probe as a ruse, saying MPs around the world have a moral role to play in exposing the WHO investigation as a Potemkin exercise, referring to the facade villages created in the 18th century Crimea to convince the visiting Russian Empress Catherine the Great that the region was doing well. Ian Duncan Smith, the former Tory party leader who attended the meeting, said Mr. Poitinger's comments represented a stiffening of the U.S. position on a theory that the virus came from a leak at the laboratory amid reports that the Americans are talking to a whistleblower from the Wuhan Institute. I was told the U.S. have an ex-scientist from the laboratory in America at the moment. He said that I heard a few weeks ago. I led to believe that they have been able to stiffen up their position on how this outbreak originated. He added that Beijing's refusal to allow journalists to visit the laboratory only served to increase suspicion that it was a ground zero for the pandemic. The truth is there are people who have been in those labs who maintain that this is a case, he said. We don't know what they have been doing in the laboratory. They may well have been fiddling with bat coronaviruses and looking at them, and they made a mistake. I've spoken to various people who believe that to be the case. This is from the Daily Mail. And of course, it says here, even establishment figures in Beijing have openly dismissed the wet market story, Poitinger told the call participants. Meanwhile, emails obtained via public records request revealed that influential scientists have been hard at work crafting their national origin thesis while suggesting a lab leak as a fringe conspiracy theory via usrtk.org. Influential scientists, many news outlets have described the evidence as overwhelming that the virus originated in wildlife, not from a lab. However, the year after the first reported cases of SARS-CoV-2 in the Chinese city of Wuhan, little is known how or where the virus originated. Understand the origin of SARS-CoV-2, which causes the disease, COVID-19 may be crucial to preventing the next pandemic. Emails of coronavirus expert Professor Ralph Barrick obtained through a public records request, a U.S. right to know, shows conversations between National Academy of Sciences representatives and the experts of biosecurity and infectious diseases from U.S. universities and the Eco Health Alliance. On February 3rd, the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, OSTP, asked the National Academies of Sciences, Engineers, and Medicine to convene meeting of experts to assess what data, information, and samples are needed to address the unknowns in order to understand the evolutionary origins of COVID and COVID and more effectively responded to both the outbreak and any resulting misinformation. Barrick and other infectious disease experts were involved in drafting the response. The email shows the expert internal discussions in an early draft dated February 4th. There are a lot of links on this page so you can look at it more further, folks. The early draft described initial views of experts that the available genomic data are consistent with natural evolution and that there is currently no evidence that the virus was engineered to spread more quickly among humans. This draft sentence posed a question in parentheses. Asked the experts to add specifics rebinding sites. It also included a footnote in parentheses, possible add brief explanation that does not preclude an unintentional release from a laboratory study the evolution of related coronaviruses. One mail dated February 4th, infectious disease expert Trevor Bedford commented. I wouldn't mention binding sites here if you're starting weighing evidence that there's a lot of consider for both scenarios. By both scenarios, Bedford appears to refer to lab origin and natural origin scenarios. The question of binding sites is important to the debate about the origins of SARS-CoV-2 distinctive binding sites on SARS-CoV-2 spike protein conferred near optimal binding and entry of the virus into human cells and make SARS-CoV-2 more contagious than SARS-CoV. Scientists have argued that SARS-CoV-2 unique binding sites could have originated either as a result of natural spillover in the wild or deliberate laboratory recombination of an as yet undisclosed natural ancestor of SARS-CoV-2. The final letter published February 6th did not mention binding sites or the possibility of a laboratory origin. It does make clear that the more information is necessary to determine the origins of SARS-CoV-2. The letter states, the experts inform us that additional genomic sequence data from geographically and temporally diverse viral samples are needed to determine the origin and evolution of the virus. Samples collected as early as possible in the outbreak in Wuhan and samples from wildlife would be particularly valuable. The emails show some experts discussing the need for clear language to counter what one described as crackpot theories of lab origin. Kristen Anderson, lead author of influential Nature medicine paper asserting a natural origin of SARS-CoV-2, said, "The early draft was great, but I do wonder if we need to be more firm on the question of engineering." He continued, "If one of the main purposes of this document is to counter those fringe theories, I think it's very important that we do so strongly and in plain language." In his response, Baric aimed at conveying a scientific basis for SARS-CoV-2's natural origin. I do think we need to say that the closest relative to this virus, 96%, was identified from bats circulating in the cave of Yunnan, China. This makes a strong statement for animal origin. Meanwhile, 27 scientists issued a statement drafted by Daszak, who didn't want to be identified as its author, in which they strongly condemned conspiracy theories suggesting that COVID-19 does not have a natural origin, and reported that scientists from multiple countries overwhelmingly conclude that this coronavirus originated in wildlife. The letter included no scientific references to refute a lab origin theory of the virus. One scientist, Linda Saif, asked via mail whether it would be useful to add just one or two statements in support of why nCoV is not a lab-generated virus and is naturally occurring. Seems critical to scientifically refute such claims. Daszak responded, "I think we should probably stick to a broad statement." Growing calls to investigate the Wuhan Institute of Virology as a potential source of SARS-CoV-2 have led to increased scrutiny of Eco-Life Alliance. The emails show how members of Eco-Alliance played an early role in framing questions about the possible lab origins of SARS-CoV-2 as a crackpot theory that needed to be addressed, as Daszak told The Guardian. Go figure. Nothing new at all. Well, you know how that goes. They all sold their rear ends to the CCP, the New World Order, etc. So this is why I said before, after some of my verifications, observations, and reading, different newspapers that are anti-CCP, of course, Epoch Times, and interviews, I am convinced it is a bioweapon. Okay, it was synthetic. Some people still buy the propaganda matrix, like originally from the seafood in Wuhan, or bats, Come on, folks. Get a grip. If you still buy that, I'm sorry. You're just a lost cause. I can't inspire you how to see things more thoroughly. You got to take the initiative on looking at the broader picture. Of course, they're always going to have that thing, and I remember people say the U.S. has started it and so forth. Like I said before, my past episodes pertaining to coronavirus, to COVID-19, it was the Wuhan scientists were the chefs, were the cooks, or the main chefs. No, they got their ideas going to the colleges and universities. One of them from University of North Carolina, one report, and there's a claim from Harvard as well. Those are claims. Because if you remember, there's we don't know how far that went, and you could even thank Henry Kissinger from the Nixon administration to share his input information with Mao Tse-tung and the Communist Chinese, trying to build relationships on that. So very intriguing indeed. So always got to look at the bigger picture, right? But hey, I'm not convinced it was naturally made. Okay, so that's how I look at it. And do one more here. This one came from economicprism.com. And yeah, it says here, economicprism.com, how to triumph in 2021 or die trying. So, I don't know who wrote this. There's a nice little letter here. And I like this interesting quote here. It says, we had seen God in his splendors, heard the text that nature renders. We had reached the naked soul of men. It's by Ernest Shackleton. So, this came out New Year's Day, believe it or not, 2021. And it says here, one essential insight. Welcome to 2021. The New Year's edition of the Economic Prism is a place of wild conjecture. This is where we squint our eyes and peer out 12 months through our proprietary prism and report back what we discover. Make no mistake, 2021 will be the year while everything under the sun happens precisely as it should. Some good, some bad. Each day shall unfold before you with reciprocal imbalance. You can bet your bottom dollar on it, but what else? Sorry about that, folks. Let me see something here. One moment. Oh, shoot. Sorry about that. Looks like I had a little vibrator on. You know, I'm trying to. I should have hit. Actually, I should have hit airplane mode. So I apologize. So, like it says here, you can bet your bottom dollar on it, but what else? Well, gold topped $3,000 per ounce. Will Bitcoin hit $100,000? What about the SP 500, the yield on the 10-year Treasury note, and the price of oil? Will collateralized loan obligations, or CLO, be rolled by mass corporate defaults? Will Walmart run out of toilet paper? Are we fated for complete social distortion? Did World War III just commence in the South China Sea? The answer to these questions we're leaving to you this year. Trust your gut. After a dismal 2020 and with Joe Biden returning to the White House, which is not official yet, we're eschewing predictions for the 12 months before us. Why bother? The Fed's already said it will leave interest rates near zero through 2023. Instead, we're doing something different. With humility and modesty, we've zeroed in on one essential insight. Our objective is to provide you something of practical value, something that will help you investigate through the 2021 unknown. Suckers, chumps, and fools. As context, those counting on government stimulus or relief payments to keep shoes on their feet and food in their bellies are going to be lacking. Indeed, many already are. But as disappointment has slipped to disenchantment, something remarkable has happened. The populace has made ever greater demands for the government to do something. In the midst of this, America's fake news media recites the story of the national struggle with delicate and excruciating regularity. They frame all happenings from the locus of the two-party political system. Any diverging views are carefully sifted out. What's reported is only what the story script editors allow to pass through their single micron articulated filters. We told a never-ending Marxian tale of the evil rich exploiting the noble poor. We're offered story after story with arduous focus applied to the gradations of skin color, fractions of ethnicities, and the virtues of non-binary gender designations. Political correctness condescends by exceptions with forceful rigor. Step out of line and you're brutally canceled. Cancel culture. I'll interject with this by saying cancel culture catering to the Orwellian snowflakes or saps. So I can relate. Even worse, we're told that the individual must submit to the greater good for the collective. That's what yours is theirs. Those who object are cast as selfish lowlives. Thus, we must hunker down so that we may bend the curve. On top of that, the goal of hard work and paying one's way in life has been reduced to a game for suckers. Stealth taxation through currency debasement has turned workers into chumps. Some small business owners who believe in doing things themselves have been made out for fools. But what's the alternative? Being crippled by dependency like everyone else? By this, we firmly stand among suckers, chumps, and fools. Because suckers, chumps, and fools stand for freedom and independence. That they want no part of endless government. They downright refuse it. Moreover, in the face of today's assaults on liberty, suckers, chumps, and fools have come to embody the human spirit. And the human spirit, as we understand it, will triumph or die trying. Here's what we mean. The human spirit writ large. Henry Worsley should have called it quits. His hero, early 20th century Antarctic explorer Ernest Shackleton, did. In 1909, Shackleton and 3 companions went closer to the South Pole than anyone had previously gone. But at 97 nautical miles away, and with death knocking at their door, they retreated. A live donkey is better than a dead lion, isn't it? Shackleton later asked his wife. Exactly 100 years later, Worsley and 2 companions achieved what Shackleton couldn't. In 2009, they trekked on foot and without assistance to precisely 90 degrees south, for all lines of longitude coverage, and they lived to tell about it. Several years later, Worsley did it again, this time with a different crew and by a different route. This made Worsley the first person to trace the 2 classic routes to the South Pole. Yet, these polar expedition successes were only just warm-ups. In late 2015, Worsley was at it again. This time, he'd be traversing across the entirety of Antarctica. Shackleton had attempted and failed this endeavor 100 years prior. What's more, the challenge set by Worsley, a solo expedition, was much greater than Shackleton's. David Grant, in his article, The White of Darkness, detailed the excursion. On November 13, 2015, Worsley set out from the coast of Antarctica, hoping to achieve what his hero, Ernest Shackleton, had failed to do a century earlier, to trek on foot from one side of the continent to the other. The journey, which would pass through the South Pole, was more than 1,000 miles and would traverse what is arguably the most brutal environment in the world. And whereas Shackleton had been part of a large expedition. Worley, who was 55, was crossing alone and unsupported. No food caches has been deposited along the route to help him forestall starvation, and he had to haul all his provisions on a sled. Without the assistance of dogs or a sail, nobody had attempted this feat before. Interesting there. So, nice little story. How to triumph in 2021 or die trying. After the first week, about 70 nautical miles in, everything began to go wrong. Worsley was pinned down by a whiteout. Then he trudged through a blinding dust bowl of ice. Then another whiteout. More white darkness. A slog through murk as thick as clotted cream. Then the mother of all storms, an uphill trudge against a fusillade of ice pellets. On January 2nd, Worsley somehow reached the South Pole. But by then, his body was shutting down. His legs were stick thin and arms puny. His Achilles tendons were swollen. He'd broken off his front tooth, gnawing on a frozen protein bar, and that he was suffering shooting pains from deep within. Worsley's days were a combination of eating, bending, driving, tying, pushing, bracing, draining, swearing, pausing, and despairing. Yet he persevered. He continued on, step by step, trudging 15 hours a day through white darkness, the elevations of 9,000 feet, all alone. Attack, attack, attack. Worsley was the human spirit writ large. The choice for Worsley was always triumph or death, and the pursuit of triumph, he pushed his fate past the point of no return. On January 19th, he scribbled in his diary, very desperate, slipping away, stomach took painkillers, his body was eating itself. On January 22nd, 71 days and a trek of nearly 800 nautical miles and only about 100 nautical miles from achieving his cross-continental destination, Worsley aborted. Using his satellite phone, he called for rescue. Alice, by time he reached a hospital in southern Chile, it was too late. Bacterial peritonitis, an infection of thin tissue that lines the inner wall of his abdomen, had taken over. First his liver failed, then his kidneys. Worsley died on January 24th, 2016. In the opening lines of Shackleton's The Heart of the Antarctic, an account of his doomed attempt to reach the South Pole in 1909, he remarked, "Men go out into the void spaces of the world of various reasons. Some are actuated simply by love of adventure. Some have the keen thirst for scientific knowledge, and others, again, are drawn away from the trodden paths by the lure of little voices, the mysterious fascination of the unknown. May you face the 2021 unknown with the human spirit of Worsley. May you triumph or die trying. Sincerely, M.N. Gordon for Economic Prism." Wow, that was a real powerful story. And what's going on now, what we're seeing in front of our eyes, are obstacles, tyrannies trying to contaminate every single person on this planet, from the infants to the elderly. What is your purpose in life, folks? I know mine's, and had to go through a few decisions here and there, but always built that knowledge, gain wisdom, share with others. Never give up on humanity. Never believe the hype. Observe responsibly. Always love your neighbors as yourselves. Don't worry, I have enemies too. I don't have pure animosity towards them. But I am critical on their actions, yes. And that is a healthy way of looking at things. I've been doing this for a long time in life. I have my issues. I have made my achievements. And I'm still here. When it comes to the New World Order, deep state, technocracy, anything tyrannical, we have the power to say no. Thomas Jefferson said it the best. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. And I think Ben Franklin wanted that as the original motto for the United States, rather than God we trust. That's a lot more powerful, to be very sincere, in my honorable viewpoint. So whatever you do, folks, keep persisting, resisting all forms of tyranny. In due time, you'll be very proud of what you can achieve. So stay focused and strong. And that will be it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or something interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence to the Decorum. Furthermore, I will leave the footnotes of these articles on my Spreaker page. And if you want to contact me, you can hit me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com or LokiLuckNumbers03@protonmail.com. And if you're doing donations, you can hit me donations. Stuttering John there for a moment. If you want to do a donation, you can hit me at paypal.me and cash.app/LokiLuck3. And you know what? Support Zero Hedge, even Economic Prism. If they do contributions, show them some support and tell them Loki Luck the Third sent you. All right. Once again, thank you for your time. Please always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. And may your guardian spirits be with you.